Thank you so much, Mark. Hmm. You can really, really, really let go and feel free. Nobody hears you. Close your eyes for a moment. That's my invitation if it feels comfortable, or gaze down softly. And really, really take that deep breath in with a lot of intention, with a lot of presence, and then deep release, making a sound with your voice. You're daring making a sound with your voice. Therapists, there's a technique, a therapy technique that uses the voice at some point without making words, just using the voice, because it does things in the brain for the theory so much as for the practice, for the experience. So feeling in our bodies what it's like to stop, to pause, to allow the body to take a deep breath and to enjoy that breath. You may have heard, usually I'm muted before I start, but this time I forgot to unmute myself when we started. And so as I was listening to Rabbi Mark, welcoming us and opening this sit today, because his voice is so, inviting and relaxing, and really inviting to take our seat, as he said so beautifully. And I had this deep sigh, of relaxation, and I think maybe it was heard because I wasn't muted. But the importance, of taking a moment, just that. And I'm saying this because all of us here today, zooming from so many different parts of the United States and North America, all have in common that we decided to dedicate, half an hour or 45 minutes, depending on whether you're staying for the discussion after, to dedicate this time in our day to pausing and practicing presence. That's really what it's about. We all have that in common, that we are dedicated to practicing, stopping, and learning, deepening our capacity. Fully present, right where we are. Our body. And it really is a thing that oftentimes during the day, most of the time maybe, our body's somewhere and our minds are in different places, jumping from this memory, that memory, and thinking about that dinner and when I'm going to pick up this one from school, or next thing that worries me. And then, again, that memory and that thought that oftentimes we're not even aware of all the thoughts and memories and anticipations. And in Hebrew, we say deagot, worries that we have. So a lot of time in our day, we're actually not inhabiting fully our bodies. And the invitation really of meditation practice is to bring together our mind with our body, to inhabit, to come back home in our bodies. Coming back to the simplicity of the present moment. So I want to raise your gaze softly down so as to put on hold for a moment interactions with the outside. Returning home. Returning home to our bodies. The tshuva, return, maybe the deepest principle of Jewish spirituality, which we do not just once at the beginning of the sit, but really every instant of a sit. We come back home to our bodies because the mind tends to take us away again. And that's what the mind does. That's natural. So we let the mind do its own processes and thoughts coming up to the surface of awareness. And all we need to do is welcome the thoughts and notice them. Oh, well, that memory is coming up right now. Oh, I'm thinking of that right now. Interesting. Welcome, welcome. And then back to the body, welcoming ourselves back to our bodies. And the breath really helps us. It gives us a concrete anchor, something palpable, something we can feel, so that we can connect to the body again. Maybe you're very, very familiar to meditation practice. Maybe it's new to you. So noticing how it feels to connect with the body, nothing else, just that. We live in societies where we're constantly stimulated, if not triggered, by external stimuli. And when we learn to meditate at first, it may feel extremely anticlimactic, maybe even a little dull, because nothing really is happening, at least on the outside. So maybe starting by acknowledging that, acknowledging how it feels right now. Maybe there's a little anxiety around this quiet and seeing thoughts arise. Can we soften and welcome, like a loving mother, everything that's coming, everything that's being expressed? Maybe it's delicious. Maybe it feels delicious to just be there with our breath. The good news is the more you practice, the more it feels delicious. I tell you. So can we enjoy? Can we actually enjoy? Just enjoying it. Moving through us. Sensations of the breath. How refreshing it feels. How vital it is. So caring and generous. It is of life and breath to give us this next breath. And in a moment, we'll reflect on the quality about practice that I wanted to share today in the light of the parasha we're about to read. But I wanted first to invite us to take a moment to recenter, to turn within, to reconnect with our bodies. And as we do that, we learn a more refined quality of presence. We learn to pay attention to things that are more subtle. And then the non-stimulation or the dullness of the experience becomes exquisite in its simplicity. I have a teacher, and I don't remember if it was Sylvia Borstein, but who was inviting us to fall in love with our breath. No matter what relationship you may have with your body, sometimes and more often than not, people have complicated relationships with our bodies. But can we fall in love with them? With this kind of unconditional quality of love? Can we feel maybe that the way we sit today, the dignity, the stillness, the presence we bring to our own sit is an inspiration for others who are sitting with us today? That we're actually supporting others through the way we sit today, energetically and more. So let's take a beautiful breath, friends. And we'll open the text from a parasha Vayechi. And I wanted to talk about practice. What is it that we do in our practice? And I was actually remembering that the last time I led a sit for IGS, I spoke about what I was calling the two wings of practice. Chesed ve'emet, loving kindness and truth. Because we really need loving kindness to be able to meet ourselves with truth. But we also need truth if we need to grow, if we want to grow. So when we meditate, we come with an intention to be true, and then to meet ourselves and others with loving kindness. And if Adi can share the screen with the document, we'll see that today, thank you so much, Adi. Today we have again the same theme that comes back. And so if we go a little bit down in the document, we see this was the pasuk, thank you so much, just that. A little less, please, so that we can see the two first texts. Maybe I can try. Thank you so much. Perfect. That's perfect. So last week we were actually looking at this Bereshit 32. And Yaakov is praying to God, and he says, "Achasadim umikol ha'emet." Hold myself from all the chesed, from all the kindness, the loving kindness, and from all the truth with your servant that you did to me, God. So he's thanking God. It's his way of thanking God for two things, chesed and emet. Thank for love, but not so much for truth, right? And I was speaking about these as really the two wings of spiritual practice. And here, Yaakov is coming closer to death. Vekovu Yamei Israel. Here he's called Israel because he became Israel. Lamut. Yamei Israel Lamut. Vekra libno le Yosef. And he calls his son, he calls Yosef. Veyomar lo. Imna matzati chen be'enecha. If I found grace, favor in your eyes, which is a way of entreating someone. Samna yadcha tachat yerechi. So place your hand under my thigh. Ve'asita imadi chesed ve'emet. And it's exactly the same expression. Asita, you did. Chesed ve'emet. So here it's a way of saying you will do, you shall do. You shall do with me. You shall deal with me with chesed and emet. With truth and loving kindness. And what I found really, really interesting is the fact that it comes back. And that's what I wanted to focus on today. Not so much the chesed and emet, which I just spoke about, and the meaning of them, but the fact that what he said to God, now he's saying to his son. And as simply as this is a teaching for us about spiritual practice. That spiritual practice is about repetition. Yaakov understood that these are the two principles he lives by. And he's asking the same out of his son, and it's a way of teaching his son. And so, as I mentioned, and I wrote on the source sheet also, that chesed and emet are mentioned in the Pirkei Avot as two of the pillars that sustain the world. But really what I want to focus on today, and we can go into our sit with that. Thank you so much, Adi. Is really this consistency, repetition. That's what practice is about. You know, the Mishnah in the Talmud, Mishnah, comes from this word, repetition. Repeating is learning. And this is exactly what we do when we meditate. We repeat presence. We come back to our commitment, to chesed, to being kind with ourselves, with our bodies, in the way we sit, to be kind in the way we are disciplined. And discipline can be kind and has to be kind if it wants to be efficient. The discipline of sitting, the discipline of not moving, the discipline of staying here still. And the truth, meeting, agreeing to meet what's inside of us. And sometimes it's painful. But that's how we heal, by accepting to meet what's alive in us. Because when things are being met with kindness, then they're free. And when they're free, they dissolve. So that's our practice, and that's what we'll do during these few minutes, these few last minutes of our sit. 5 minutes. So I want to invite you to, as Rabbi Mark said at the very opening, to take your seat again, even if you're already sitting. Maybe it's by adjusting your posture. Maybe it's by getting up and sitting again intentionally. Maybe it's by moving a bit your shoulders back. Maybe by moving very slightly left and right to find your center again. You're taking your seat. We'll take a deep breath. And allowing our breath to follow its normal, natural rhythm, pace. Of keeping a soft, very soft focus on the breath, just to stay grounded in our bodies, just to keep that anchor, keeping us steady right here as the thoughts left and right come up and pass. Coming to quiet inside, that great silence, stillness that's already there. And remembering that chesed and emet are not things we need to get or find or achieve, that they really are already here, part of our fabric. And simply every time we notice we got caught up in thoughts, understanding that the practice is not to not get coming back to the body. For the last couple of seconds of the seat, offering our most beautiful presence. And taking a deep breath in, a deep breath out. Coming back slowly to our screens and getting ready to say Kaddish with Rabbi Mark.
Thank you, Mira, once again for such a sweet and exquisite teaching and practice. Friends, we seal it. Part of the practice is to seal it, a chatima, as it were, with the Mourner's Kaddish. So if you're in mourning, if you're observing a yard site, if it's your custom to participate in Kaddish, you're welcome to do so and to put the name or names of anyone you're holding in your heart today in the chat box. If you're not saying Kaddish, the practice is to remain present, attentive, and extend chesed, loving kindness, to those who are invited to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite the words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Yalma Yamliach Malchutei Yemechon Chayei L'chol Beit
Israel,
Ha'agala
and Kari Meru, Amen.
Shmei Rabba Mevarach Yitbarach Yishtabach Yitpa'ar Yitnaseh
Kadar
Yitalev
Yitalev Yitalav Shabrichu Elam in Kol Berkata Shirata Shirata Benakamata Damiran Alma Miru Amen
Ba'amiran Ba'alma
Hey Shlama Rabba B'Shalom Chaim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Inu Amen Say Shalom B'Mamav V'Yaseh Shalom V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Miru Amen.
Amen. Are you okay?
And friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I thank our teacher for today, Mira Neshama Niculescu, for leading us as always so beautifully, and looking forward to extending the practice and exploring the teaching for today in a few minutes. Those of you who are able and would like to are welcome to stay on for that. We do want to thank, in addition to Mira, we want to thank Adi Stein for holding our tech Mishkan with ease, grace, and skill. And thank our sponsor for today, Pat Scala, for sponsoring our practice. Thank you, Pat. So glad the practice has been so supportive and helpful for you, and grateful for your gratitude and expressing your gratitude in this way by sponsoring today's set. For those who are staying on, if you have a question for Mira, you can put it in the chat box. We'll try to keep an eye on that. And for those who are leaving us, hope you'll join us tomorrow. Oded Shazifi will be leading us in practice to sit into Shabbat together at our usual time, 12:30 Eastern. We hope to see you then. Well, Mira, that was really, again, as usual, so beautiful. Thank you. I have a lot of questions floating around in my head and topics here. One thing that struck me, and I really appreciated the continuity from the last time you led, Chesed and Emet. And it struck me today that seeing the context of that quote of Jacob speaking to Joseph and using that phrase in his preparing to die, where I went with that was, of course, the whole process of burial in Jewish tradition is associated with those words. It's an act of chesed shel emet, right? Which it's kind of a weird phrase, chesed shel emet. What does that mean? It's chesed of emet. So anyway, it made me think about death, of course, and made me think about truth, and thinking that in some ways practice is about noticing what is true. And what is true is that I'm alive, and that for various reasons, I'm feeling especially aware of this, that mortality is real, that I'm alive and I'm mortal. This is not forever, which is a truth that I don't, 99.9% of my day, I do not think about that or want to think about that. But the paradox about becoming aware of our mortality is that we are, I think, often more alive, more present when we are able to do that. But it struck me from your teaching that what makes that possible is chesed. So first I got a compliment for you, which is that you, in your teaching, you set the tone by creating an atmosphere that feels suffused and permeated with chesed and kindness, right? Which enables us to feel safe enough to turn towards what is true. And even if it's something as simple as my body, which, I may have all kinds of judgments about, but you put it as twice you put it in your teaching today, like a loving mother, you said, and it was another phrase that had to do with love. I don't remember exactly, but can we radically love and accept ourselves, right? When there is judgment, say like, oh, so the chesed coming before the emet is really, I'm coming to a question here, this long monologue. The question is, why does chesed precede emet? Whereas in mindfulness practice, sometimes I think, oh, first we face and notice the truth of our experience. Then we apply chesed when we are distracted. But what I've got from your teaching today was that, oh no, start with chesed, then go to truth, and then keep applying more chesed. So that's my question to you. Why start with chesed? Why doesn't it start with emet?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Your
Can't hear you.
thoughts. Oh, really?
Is that me?
I can hear.
I can hear you, Mira.
Do other people hear?
Oh, okay.
Raise your hand if you hear.
Mark, we can
Okay.
hear her.
You do. Okay, so that's me. All right,
Oh,
go ahead.
Let's
Go ahead.
see.
Oh, I'm good. Okay.
You can hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, the chesed sandwich.
Mhm.
Chesed, truth, and chesed.
I'll
First of all,
have a double order of that.
yeah, first of all, thank you so much. And it's never monologues, long monologues. It's always like really very, very insightful and inspiring comments. I think it's as simple as that. If I don't start by setting the stage, and as you said at the very beginning, taking my seat, so setting a frame of chesed, I actually will not be able to welcome truth.
Uh-oh.
I think it's such a dear topic for me. Can you hear? Can people hear me?
You froze for a second, but you're back.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, yeah. I haven't noticed that my connection isn't stable. I hope it works. Okay. If not, please meet it with chesed. I come from a background with a lot of harshness, a lot of harshness, and so I used to be like this before I meditated more. My inner judge was extremely severe and extremely active, and there was a lot of pain inside of me, and I couldn't meet the truth of what was going. Like the emotions, the level of anguish and fear and regret and shame was actually too strong for a very long time. And I realized I really, 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 really had to practice a lot of chesed to bring this loving quality, this kind of unconditional loving, this kind of like mythical mother. That's not my flesh mother, right? This kind of mother quality, which is also the Shekhinah, really, that we all have within ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because then it creates a safe space in which emet can be met, and it changes everything, because then I can meet a difficult thought, emotion, memory coming up in meditation. I'm like, oh, and sometimes I even use my hands, and I really want to invite you guys to do the same, to hug yourselves. Like, actually do it now if you want. Just hug yourselves and feel how it feels. A hug with intention. Just that, that this is healing in itself. There is a word for that I forgot, but it's therapy. If physical, like through touch, autonomy or something. Or you may want to place a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly. From there. So that's why chesed first. Love sets the tone, as Noah just wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, let's take so many good things here. How would you explain to a young adult seeking guidance in profound pain that one must accept, meet with kindness, that which is inside in order to heal?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll tell you what comes to mind. And first of all, I think one thing that's very difficult, and I don't have children yet, and I hope I will, but we can't spare them from suffering, and we can't spare them from their own processes. That's one thing I want to put on the table at in some place. But one thing we can do is us meet them with unconditional loving, unconditional acceptance, and because then we model that. And if people are met with this kind of unconditional support and care and everything, then maybe it's going to kind of invite some movement inside of them to mirror, because we actually always mirror each other, right? So someone coming with aggressivity, we're going to be harsh. Someone coming with just like, wow, I love you so much as you are. I love you with your pain. I love you with your inner judge not accepting your pain. I love you not accepting yourself. I just love you and I'm with you, and not trying to change them. That's what comes to mind.
That's great. I know you have expertise in this field, across religions, and especially Buddhism. And here's I want to invite you to talk a little bit maybe about a Jewish frame around that teaching, that we start with love, which I think a lot of Jews don't necessarily, for them that's news, right? That we start from a place of love, the loving mother. A lot of people's conception of God or the divine is of harsh judge, reinforcing the inner judge. And so when you teach and you embody and you share this teaching that we start with love, and that enables us to meet truth, maybe you could speak a little bit about where you find that resonant in Jewish tradition.
What I was thinking of, first of all, thank you. What I was thinking of when you spoke, a few things. But first of all, Ve'afta l'reacha kamocha, that's the first thing. That's the klal gadol. That's the biggest principle of Torah. That's like the heart of Torah, really. And I remember I had a Christian friend telling me, what's the difference between you guys and us? Is that we say you shall love your fellow as yourself. And I was like, oh, okay, you don't know that. It's okay. And so that just tells us that like love, love comes, yeah, exactly. So love comes first. And we just thing that came to mind was like, the attributes of the divine, which we actually call attributes of mercy. So Hashem, Rachum, Bechanu, Melech Chapayim, V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet. So all these words, right? And it starts with Rachamim, starts with mercy.
Oops, freezing up a little bit again. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's okay. We're meeting it with okay everyone now? Everyone is meeting the internet with a lot of chesed right now.
Yeah, thank you.
As we usually do.
So like the heart of Torah is chesed. The heart of like of the attributes of the divine are chesed. And then I'm forgetting who was saying that the and chesed, according to the Pirkei Avot, again is one of the pillars of the world. So it's just it's core. Chesed here is core. We just have to go back there.
It is really core. And I think once people experience the power, first of all, I want to thank you for sharing, and your willingness to be vulnerable. And I'll say that I was exactly like you in terms of that kind of inner critic, and not only that, but I thought that was really, a Jewish way to be in the world also, to be really hard on myself and really hard on others. And it's a little hard for me to remember that now, but it's really true. That was like most of my life, really. And it was a paradigm shift for me. But once one makes that shift and you look at Torah, you look at Jewish liturgy, it's like, wow, it's everywhere. The reminders are everywhere. If you're willing to notice them or look at them and say, instead of saying, yeah, but remember when this happened,
Yeah.
So I think I want to thank you for lifting up that really essential element of tradition here.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I'm reading what Gail wrote, that Jews are laws and Christians are law and Christians are love. Like, this is really a social construction that came from rabbinic Judaism, and then the interpretations of rabbinic Judaism, and then what our social culture has become. And I personally have an Orthodox practice, although I don't like boxes, but every time I go to Orthodox circles, I can see that love has been forgotten a lot, not always. I'm doing a cliche, but we have to question the culture. We don't have to take it for granted, and we have to go back to actually our texts and our sources, and to and kind of reframe, and that's our task, I think, as spiritual teachers and the Institute of Jewish Spirituality. We don't have to take it for granted what this culture has become and says of itself. It doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah. Well, we are out of time, but I'm going to bookmark and table a question for next time about emet, because the question did come up about, well, what is truth anyway? Okay, and when we're speaking about emet in the context of meditation or mindfulness practice, you have plenty of time to think about this. The question is, what do we mean by truth? We speak about the truth of my experience right now. What does that mean? What is truth? It isn't at all relative anyway. What do we mean by that? So we'll leave it. It'll be a cliffhanger. We'll leave it on that question, okay? And we'll pick
Remind me next time we can talk about it.
I will.
And I have a one food thing about it.
Okay, great.
Next time.
All right, we got that. We have a date for next time. Okay, all right, Mira, thank you as always. Always beautiful to be with you.
Thank you.
I know everyone really, really appreciates it, and good luck on your. I know you have a journey to England. I really hope that goes well and it's fun and rewarding. And we'll see you soon, I hope. Thanks, Adi. Thank you, Pat. Thanks everybody for being here. Your beautiful devotion to this practice, and a few newcomers. So glad to have you here. Please come again. The door is always open. Okay.